Hollow Knight's charm system is full of really mechanically interesting, playstyle altering, and yes, in some cases, absolutely broken charms, looking at you, Fluke Nest. But there are a few stinkers as well. And by that I don't necessarily mean Defender's Crest, since it's actually marginally useful in a few spots and only costs a single notch anyway. In the past, myself and a lot of other creators have put a lot of focus on what the good charms are. But today, I wanted to look specifically at the very worst of the worst. Figure out what those charms are, and if their reputation really is all that deserved. I'm also gonna give you my proposal for what the worst possible charm build is. Are there potentially any niche use cases for these charms that make them blow slightly less heavily? Foreshadowing is a literary device that... Now, I want to preface this by clarifying that as a speedrunner with over 3,000 hours poured into this game, oh my god, get a life, my approach will most likely end up being very min-maxy in nature, but I'll try my best to also consider the casual playthrough experience. Also, I'm so late to this, but thank you for 100k subs. It is quite incredible, and we managed to get there before I turned 18. I am old now, I turned 18. So thank you so much for the continued support. You're all amazing. And I believe I owe you a hand reveal. Boom.
Hello, it's me. I'm Blue. Here's my hand. Thank you so much. Bye.
Seriously though, thank you so much. Enjoy the video. Yippee! So, to start, there are a lot of charms in Hollow Knight that are just kind of... but might have at least something that redeems them, or at least makes them situationally useful. So I'll rapid fire through a few of those, I suppose. Now, starting with Joni's Blessing, this thing costs 4 notches, completely blocks your ability to heal, and only gives you an additional 4 masks worth of health. Now, I bet you're expecting me to see that this is really bad, and you know what? Yeah, it is. But the sheer amount of health that you have with Joni's makes you borderline invincible, and almost able to face tank any single boss. Which does make it somewhat useful in a few situations at least. Now let's be honest, I think the same thing could be said for Deep Focus. It's kinda shit, but it is useful in White Palace, because it does double the amount of healing that you get for each cast of soul, which makes it at least situationally useful. So you know what, I'll give it that. 4 notches for this charm is absolutely ridiculous though. And yeah, this is gonna ruffle some feathers, but Dream Shield is bad. I had really forgotten how useless this thing is. I mean, what does Dream Shield in simply has to do with the charm cost. It does 1 nail hit worth of damage when it actually happens to be in the right position to damage an enemy, and then has an exorbitant recharge time. That being said, it doesn't really actively hurt you in any way, as the truly terrible charms do. It's just kind of a waste of notches. And it doesn't really block any projectiles either, in my experience. I feel like this is the case for most charms in Hollow Knight that you would put in the okay or situationally useful category. They're just kind of... they're inoffensive, I suppose. They're a waste of notches, but they're not actively detrimental to you. Which brings us to the point of the video. Okay, here's what you came for. Here's the really bad ones. I'll be honest, Hollow Knight's minion charms are all kind of bad. But one of them does stand out in particular. Glowing Womb, priced at 2 notches, is arguably not only a waste of those 2 notches, but actively works in detriment to the rest of your damage output, and actively screws you over a lot of the time. You see, the hatchlings each deal 9 damage upon hitting an enemy, the equivalent of a nail hit with 1 nail upgrade. This is, first of all, quite laughable damage, and these hatchlings each cost 8 soul and spawn every 4 seconds. The issue here is pretty obvious. If you have anything more than a base vengeful spirit, the use of Glowing Womb results in significantly less damage for your soul than you would otherwise get, on top of constantly draining your soul, many times preventing the player from being able to choose to heal instead of casting with their soul. For reference, and I'll just assume that you're using Shaman Stone here, 1 full cast of Abyss Shriek deals 120 damage for a cost of 33 soul. The use of 33 soul with Glowing Womb would give you roughly 4 hatchlings, with a damage output of 36 damage. I mean, 36 damage would be fine if this were an early game charm, but unless you're a rando player or a speedrunner who knows how to do this very precise spike tunnel, you have to wait until after Crystal Heart to pick up this charm. by that time you could unlock Descending Dark pretty easily, which does a whopping 88 damage with Shaman Stone. Heck, even Base Dive does 35 damage, which is the same amount, but without costing you 2 notches. And that's without Shaman Stone, by the way, and while allowing you to choose exactly when to dive. It really is pretty absurd. And even if you don't have upgraded spells, you're still getting less or about as much damage, while costing you 2 entire notches, and your ability to choose to heal instead with that soul. This is compounded by the hatchlings deciding to attack bosses even when they're staggered, thereby preventing free healing windows, even if you have the soul for it. And if you did get a stagger and had enough soul, you know, they could spawn a hatchling while you're healing, draining your soul and preventing you from finishing that heal. Great charm. And oh my god, don't get me started on traversal with this charm equipped. And yes, this is a problem that applies to every minion charm for sure, except for Grimchild, because Grimchild can't hit anything anyway. Glowing Womb bothers me especially due to sucking so much in every other regard as well. The charm's 2 synergies with Fury the Fallen and Defender's Crest don't do much help here. Actually, the Fury one is kind of alright, since you being on Fury prevents the need for healing, thereby alleviating one of the charm's main issues. Each hatchling dealing an additional 4 damage is actually pretty decent as a gimmick. It's still worse than spells, but it's significantly less offensive. The Defender's Crest synergy, though, is just kind of ridiculous. A real stinker, if you will. I'll be honest, it genuinely makes the charm even worse somehow, which is kind of impressive. Having Glowing Womb equipped with Defender's Crest takes away, yes, takes away, 5 of the 9 damage from the charm's direct hit, and adds it back in the form of a poop cloud that deals a total of 5 damage over 1 second of duration. That means if you're fighting a mobile target, you literally lose out on damage that you would otherwise deal if you didn't have Defender's Crest, because the enemy exits the poison cloud. Honestly, I said at the start that I wasn't gonna badmouth Defender's Crest, but come to think of it, while the charm itself is pretty inoffensive, it's kinda funny how literally every synergy it has, arguably its main appeal, makes the synergized charm worse. It completely stops Fluke Nest from being broken with a Mega Stink Fluke, it makes Glowing Womb somehow even worse, and really the only thing it's got going for itself is that it gives you a discount at Leg Eater, which makes it the best charm in the game. Thank you, Defender's Crest, I love you. Hello, editor's note here. I forgot about the Spore Shroom synergy it makes, which does make the charm better stuff. Sorry. Now, the other contender for worst charm in the game is a bit unsurprising. It's Heavy Blow. When I made a poll on my community page of which charm people thought was the worst, people overwhelmingly voted for Heavy Blow. I think this is mostly because I've made this one of my personal curb stomping targets in the past, and it's kind of a meme, but it is genuinely awful. Let's talk about it. Heavy Blow costs a grand total of 2 charm notches, and increases the knockback your nail inflicts on its victims. This, similarly to Glowing Womb, is absolutely terrible and actively works to diminish your damage output. Because both you and the enemy are now getting pushed back farther apart from each hit. This results in a loss of damage output as you're hitting the enemy less often. Consequentially, this also results in a loss of soul gathering, which in turn is a loss of spell damage output and survivability. To demonstrate this, here are 4 different fights against Soul Warrior, which is a good boss because it takes decent knockback and moves around a lot. The ideal scenario here would be to have Quick Slash and Steady Body, and as you can see in this example, I can absolutely push the boss around, really hug it, and constantly swing at full speed. Even when you take off Steady Body, you can still do this to some extent, and if you're really good, you can still up slash and have the same effect. However, once you equip Heavy Blow, you see that with Quick Slash or not, you simply cannot swing at full speed. Each time you hit the boss, you have to chase them by dashing to catch up with how far they go back. It's terrible. Like, you can make it, like, maybe manageable if you have Steady Body and Heavy Blow, but, like, why would you ever do that? For fights that take Stagger, it also results in a loss of Stagger buildup. This last point is marginally remedied by one of the charm's secret effects, and arguably the main use value of Heavy Blow, which is that it reduces the hits to stagger an enemy by 1 for bosses. This is, well, yeah, I'll give it that. It's pretty decent, I suppose, but at most mitigates the stagger harm the charm already does with its other effect. And that is without even acknowledging the fact that a lot of Hollow Knight's bosses take little to no knockback in the first place, and some don't even stagger. If you were using Heavy Blow on Absolute Radiance, it would be absolutely useless. Which honestly, wasting 2 notches on nothing is at least better than wasting 2 notches on losing damage. So, it's bad. And now here comes the twist. This is the part where I defend Heavy Blow. Oh man, I never thought it would come to this. Oh, I kind of feel ill. I think I'm gonna be sick. And you wanna know the funny part? It's not even on its own merits. It's about Fluke Nest. Now, if you don't know why Fluke Nest is OP and broken, I have a really old and bad video that you can watch about that. It's the most viewed video on my channel, and I'm thinking about redoing it, and maybe I should. But for now, it works. So go watch that if you're curious about that. The short version is that Fluke Nest is broken on the current patches of the game, and leaves lingering hitboxes. If you know how to manipulate those lingering hitboxes, you can deal multiple instances of damage with each cast, which results in you being able to get casts from the normal 80 damage to over 300, which is why we use Fluke Nest all over the 112% speedrun, including in the Pantheons. This gives a dual role for Steady Body in the Pantheon charm build, because not only is it useful to be able to swing in full speed and have control over the boss, this control over the boss allows us to push the boss around into fluke hitboxes and get multi-hits. It's very useful. And this is where Heavy Blow comes in. While Steady Body is the good version of that, allowing you to have control and push the boss wherever you want, Heavy Blow also pushes the boss back. A while ago, Monsta decided to troll me, and he sent me this clip. Turns out, it is optimal to fight Hive Knight with Heavy Blow. Oh my god, please kill me. As you can see, the Heavy Blow nail hits allows you to push the Hive Knight far enough back that you can basically get multi-hits anywhere by just bullying them into it. Is this a real strategy? No, it's more of a joke. But that use case does exist, and, you know, I do need to be fair and actually acknowledge that. Okay, so now we've gone over the 2 charms that I think are by far the worst charms in the game. But I have another question. What about the worst charm build? What is the least effective charm build you could ever equip? Well, let's get to that. My proposal is the following. And if you've been paying attention, you can probably guess roughly what this is gonna be. Starting off pretty obviously, we have Glowing Womb and Heavy Blow for a 4 notches total. I'm not gonna explain these ones again, that's what the whole video is about, whatever. The next one is interesting, however. Fluke Nest, the game's arguably best charm. Now, this might seem really weird. Why would you put the best charm in the worst charm build? If only there was a way to neutralize Fluke Nest and make it useless. Oh, Defender's Crest! Now, we've gone over how Defender's Crest makes Glowing Womb somehow even worse, but by far the worst combo of Defender's Crest is with Fluke Nest. As you might know, it replaces the small flukes with one big stinky fluke. This stinking fluke does not have the multi-hit lingering hitbox brokenness of regular Fluke Nest, which completely patches the charm, putting Fluke Nest back in its theoretical place as the game's worst charm. So Defender's Crest is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. And if Fluke Nest isn't broken, that removes another use of Heavy Blow as well, as I covered earlier. We're at 8 notches now, and the least effective thing you could do right now is do a really unoptimal overcharm. So we're gonna slap on Deep Focus as the final charm of the build. Now, obviously, we could equip another 2-notch charm before overcharming, but that would be more optimal, so we're not doing that. So there you go. That is, according to me, the worst Hollow Knight charm build. It is so stupidly bad that, you know, honestly, it's kind of hilarious. The heal takes so long, you're almost guaranteed to be scammed out of it by the hatchling stealing your soul during it. The flukes deal literally as little damage as possible, and Glowing Womb is Glowing Womb. Your nail hits are terrible and knock the enemy 2 kilometers away, and everything is miserable. Honestly, as long as you're not playing with this build, then you're probably doing something right. That being said, I also think it's important to state that whatever playstyle you approach the game from, that is entirely valid. I don't really intend this to be a "you're playing Hollow Knight wrong" type video, you know? That being said, do let me know in the comments what you think the game's worst charms are. You know, maybe there's something I haven't considered. And I guess if you enjoy the video, subscribe if you want to. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Bye!